Imagine being made out of clay and you're so cool that you turn into a battle suit for Batman. Clayface done that. Ain't that cool? Clayface is one of those beings you're wondering, how the heck does Batman have to fight these type of guys? I mean, he's a nightmare to fight. If you don't have the right elemental defense or attacks to fight against him with, he's almost unhurtable. Not to mention, he can catch you off guard because he can shapeshift so well. You could be thinking you're fighting a normal person, but it's really Clayface in disguise. This is important because if you're battling him and you're getting advantage over him, he could be just simply pretending to be bleeding and he's not really bleeding and you're not doing no damage. And then he can just get the drop on you out of the blue when your guard's down for a split second to stab you. Like if you don't know you're fighting a guy made of clay, you might hold back in a certain way. And that holding back could be your downfall without you even knowing it because you're thinking your opponent is weaker than they actually are. He's done this plenty of times to get the jump on different beings, pretending to be Superman, Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Cheetah, to get the drop on you. It's just scary. He's copied beings so much to where even Power Girl couldn't even tell the difference, pretending to be Wildcat in this occasion. Or make himself look like how he used to look when he was a human. The man known as Batman has a lot of beings he has to fight, one of them being Clayface. Probably one of the most annoying characters to fight because he doesn't really have a physical body, really. His body's fluid and liquidy. His original origin before he became Clayface, he was an actor that got mad when he realized his movie was getting a remake. So he wore a mask of clay and started going on a killing spree. Yeah, that's pretty savage. And in the earlier days, in case you didn't know, there was 3 beings that went by the name of Clayface, just in case you're curious on what this means. Karlo basically wanted to become the ultimate Clayface, so he injected him stuff like always with sciencey type stuff from the other Clayfaces. Majority of this video, I'm gonna go over this guy named Basil. There was other Clayfaces like Matthew who actually had Clayface-like abilities, like because it was a freakish accident that gave him the phenomenal ability to mold his features into whatever shape he wished to become virtually another person. Out of the 3 Clayfaces, he was called the Clayface 2, Matt was. Pretty much explained all the Clayfaces here. Sandra Fuller, Preston Payne, Matthew, who was just wanting to find some sunken treasure. But Basil wanted to be the ultimate Clayface. You can see the science of it all right here, of how the process works. So he basically got cool with the previous Clayfaces just to use them for their own needs, especially the one that can actually shapeshift to the actual real molecular changing type stuff. And right here, you can get all the information about Clayface that you need. He injected himself with the blood extracts from all 3 of ensuing Clayface, thereby acquiring their aggregate and truly extra normal abilities. Ultimate Clayface, like I've already said a billion times. Clayface has a complex digestive system designed to process food rapidly, which is why he can eat beings up and just get stronger from it. If he gets poisoned, he can dispel the poisons from his body very fast. Enough of that, but how strong is this guy? And apparently can eat folks and get more power, apparently. Since he's a shapeshifter type being, he can shapeshift and look like other beings. Like the time he made himself look like Cheetah and threw a truck. Yeah, I remember that one time he threw a whole bunch of large rocks at the Batmobile because he's that strong. He can even throw stuff hard enough to get through force field, if that makes sense. In the occasion with Batman, plenty of times fighting Batman. So you already know he has super strength, obviously, because of his weird nature, but he can use his strength in combat to hit you hard. Like in this occasion, knocking Supergirl back, got in a tussle with Metamorpho, somebody I have a video about on the channel. Look at his expressions. He even tackled Power Girl. Yeah, imagine that. He can damage Batman, obviously, and it's the case with another Bat family member damaging walls, rips off metal and reforms it, breaks out of containment cells, something that's made to hold him. Whether it's Dick Grayson or the Batman himself, they all have struggles getting out of his grip. Even in earlier days, he was able to restrain him. He couldn't really get out that great. You're probably thinking beings that can control Earth could have their way with Clayface. That's probably what you're thinking, right? I would have thought the same thing. Like beings like Geoforce seem like they would have his number, but that's not even necessarily the case when it comes to Clayface because he's a force of nature, apparently. I know she probably wasn't going all out, but he did tag Supergirl here. Same with Wonder Woman, Batman. Yeah, he was looking like Jason Todd on purpose here, disguised as different Bat family members. He fights them. If he was slow, he would always get dies. It's kind of proven that he's, at least when it comes to raw fighting speed, as fast as super soldiers. But thanks to his fluid body and fluid type nature, his durability is where it's hard to really hurt him unless you know his weakness. Because how would blunt punches affect this guy without some elemental stuff being a part of the game? It makes his survivability really crazy. It allows him to be able to withstand hits from beings way stronger than him. Like Supergirl, for example. Or Wonder Woman, he was disguised as Cheetah here. His fluid body durability nature allows him to take hits from the heavy hitters without necessarily being in danger to an extreme degree. And don't even waste your time trying to use guns on this guy. It'll just be like, and it won't really do no damage. It doesn't matter the power of the gun. Headshots, don't matter. Batarangs don't matter. And even if you have elemental stuff against him, it's not an end-all be-all. It will hurt real bad, but he can survive it. Like missiles. He even miraculously survived heat vision from Power Girl. He's withstood flames, and it's not like an end-all be-all, but it damages him. Electric shock attacks, stun bolts, and stuff of that such. And is it really shocking that he can regenerate his head? Like, regenerating major body parts don't really matter to a guy that can survive being blown into pieces, being destroyed in a fight, he still can survive it. It's even explained here how it's a clay that has amazing healing properties, which is why Clayface usually takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Rhyming. One can say he can increase his power by eating enough people. He can grow to the size of a building or even bigger. But even without doing so, you can see that he just quickly gets bigger than Batman. He can shapeshift and make his arms and limbs different weapons like chainsaws, axes, mace, blade, hammer, hook, and net, or just simply 2 weapons at once. Or stretch and hit you. Or if you dodge all of his attacks, he can just turn into a big old flood, and you can't really dodge a flood, can you? Like, how do you dodge all this BS? He can kind of get liquidy, but he looks like a snake here. He makes large spikes, or he can just decide to absorb you and then fire you out. He could definitely effortlessly level a couple city blocks if he felt like it. I mean, look how big he is. Giant mechs have to fight this guy. And he does pretty well against it. So whatever his size is, his strength should be comparable to it, because he doesn't seem weak for his size in super giant battle suits like this. Prende, he's strong enough to completely pin Poison Ivy to the wall. This is what he does to brick walls with his punches, steel gates, get out of my way, sends cars flying with his blows. And on special conditions, I don't think this is something he can just spam all the time. When he gets in contact with quartz minerals, like in this particular comic, his body reacts in a certain way when he absorbs it into his being. He can fire blasts of electricity thanks to the quartz. Does it to Batman. These new abilities, thanks to the quartz, allowed him to counter being frozen. Yeah, he's a serious threat for Batman like this. But even without the quartz mineral, he still technically has deadly stuff to where you might not even want to touch him. And if you do, you might regret it. Like corrosive touch to burn you. Yeah, that's pretty broken. So it's already hard to avoid him, but if he does touch you, you got to deal with this possibly. I mean, look how he can eat through the ground. He's dissolved others with a touch. You know it's a part of him because when he was first getting his abilities in the first place, like I showed earlier, he touched a man and had a lethal touch of Clayface 3 to pretty much be able to incinerate you that way. Do y'all remember in the earlier comics when Wonder Woman was technically born from clay, you know, Clayface, Wonder Woman born from clay? One could call this a temporary power for Clayface since of Wonder Woman having this technicality for Clayface's advantage. I mean, I guess this kind of adds up because he can absorb the stuff of nearby material. But one could say he became Wonder Woman tier for like a good 2 seconds. Trying to use his body to break hers down to make her clay blend with his. This Wonder Woman clay absorption power made him shapeshift into Aquaman-ish, made himself look like Zeus, so he got more powerful than ever, got real huge compared to cars, can straight up fly because of this now, so he was like Wonder Woman tier. Even if he technically doesn't have her inside of him no more, he still had her abilities for a while. Dude took on the form of Superman. It's implied he was able to pin Wonder Woman against the wall. With this temporary power-up, he stated he is stronger and faster than Wonder Woman now, apparently, in his opinion. They said he's seemingly stronger than Zeus, which might be in hyperbole, but yeah, he's significantly amped up. But it's one of those things. There's no way DC would let him stay at these Wonder Woman levels. But yeah, he was up there for a minute. When it comes to the latest iteration of Clayface, DC kind of has merging universes together and stuff of that such. So yeah, he still can do the standard stuff his earlier version of himself could do. But he seems to do absurd stuff like copying genetic-based powers from DNA. Stated something like that here. And apparently he's been training with Batman and he knows Kung Fu. When he was pretending to be Joker here, he punched through the train, punched through metal bars, just like the other version of himself. He can still tank the same type of stuff, like a ton of gunfire, or using bladed weapons against him is a waste of time. Seriously, why would you even try to use swords against him? Your best bet is to use furnace and heat, extreme temperature, elemental type of stuff about him, and even then he sometimes still survives. He can even tank being partially frozen, but this is your best bet when fighting him though. But what makes him dangerous is that he can control pieces of him, even if they aren't necessarily attached to him. But it's cool that he can shapeshift into bulls, or literally turn into a mech suit for Batman. Like, he literally turned into a battle suit for Batman. Isn't that cool? He seems to have the ability to survive large explosions, and is even unprotected in space. Yeah, it's the same standard stuff, changing shape, getting bigger in size, building size. He's definitely on the higher ends of the meta-human type characters. I mean, we're talking about a guy that can get this freaking big, depending on the circumstances, like the literal size of buildings, and basically turn into a mudslide. Or he can simply become a part of the city this, like, look at this mess. You can get a visual image of how destructive he can get. Batwing drones, he can take a whole bunch of attacks from. He can become a threat this big. He withstands missiles from the Batmobile. Tosses the Batmobile. Oh, just no big deal. Can casually walk through the sides of 2 buildings. Like I'm not just building gigantic size. He's strong enough to fire his fist out like rockets, overpowering Stargirl's Star Blast, for example. Or just basically drown a foe. I mean, how do you fight a guy that can just do this on the spot and skewer your body that fast? You don't even have to worry about his limbs. His limb is everywhere. So even old versions of him, they don't really seem to be that much different. He can lift 20 plus tons if he gets amped up based on certain conditions, like absorbing Wonder Woman of clay from, like I showed you earlier, or just eating more people to get stronger and get bigger in size, can shoot out big rocks very hard, and do all this madness. His new version of himself seems to be able to do all that stuff I already showed you and more possibly, like always a threat for Batman and even overpowering him. And then there's the fact he can get this big, but that could be just me. What do you guys think? Do you respect Clayface? Is he overpowered? Do you understand why he's such a threat now? They're not fighting him in no fist fight. No street tiers really fighting him in no fist fight, really, or super soldier tiers. You got to use like elemental stuff because you're not going to be able to punch somebody made of this gooey stuff. You know what I mean? He's like a One Piece Log Gear type character where their bodies are fluid and can regenerate and stuff. That's just how Clayface is. But I'll see you guys later. He can definitely probably lift over hundreds of tons, especially when he becomes the size of buildings. He probably can lift over hundreds of thousands of tons like that. And you can't even beat him with brute punches regardless of that anyway. But what do you guys think? Post your comments down below. Let me know what you all think. And never forget that there are some builders out there that can weigh up to hundreds of thousands of tons. And the fact that he can get as big as buildings lets you know his threat level. Respect Clayface. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button and I will see you guys later.